we did have some questions, and several people sent this one in, and it states that, what does this verse mean? To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Two people asked. Now, I explained it to a couple people earlier, but that one I'm going to deal with tomorrow night before our presentation tomorrow night, because I got a fairly long presentation tonight, and I didn't want to get too cluttered up. I got a couple more I'm going to answer, so tomorrow night before the presentation, we will deal with that one, okay? When God resurrected, did he have holes in his hands? Pretty good question, huh? Well, if we go to John chapter 20, verse 24, it says, one of the 12 disciples, Thomas, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. Thomas said to them, what? Unless I see the scars of the nails in his hands and put my finger on those scars and my hand in his side, I will not believe. Now, being how he's wanting the scars, that would mean Jesus is down off of the cross and resurrected, no? Okay. A week later, the disciples were together again indoors, and Thomas was with them. The doors were locked, but Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here and look at my hands. Then reach your hand and put it in my side. Stop doubting and believe. Thomas answered, my Lord and my God. So does Jesus have the scars from the cross as a perpetual reminder? Yes, he does. Very good question. Very good question. Another question was, what would it take Jesus or God to make your prayers come true in an instant, like when he resurrected Lazarus and left? Very good question, isn't it? I can't answer that. But tonight's presentation is going to come as close as I can come to answering that. Okay? And when we get done tonight, it may click with you. Okay? So maybe we'll think about this one after. Also, the same thing with this question. This is another great question. Why did God create Lucifer in the first place, knowing he will be a destroyer of God's beautiful creation? Tonight's presentation will deal with that also, but the short version of that answer is, how many of you have children? Did you know they weren't going to be holy little ones when you had them? Yet you still had them, didn't you? Why? Because you wanted something to love. And in order to love, one needs to be free. And that precipitates another question, and I was talking to Susan earlier about this. God created everybody with freedom and freedom to choose, including the holy beings, before he created this earth. So let's ask this question. If Lucifer had not rebelled, with a free universe, eventually would someone have rebelled? We don't know, but we can assume yes, because God created Lucifer knowing he would rebel. So if he hadn't created him, we can almost assume that. I don't want to assume it, but so tonight's presentation, once again, is going to help us with these two questions, okay? And another one, how do you know when God will come again? What year? What time? What day? Next Saturday night, we'll deal with that one. The whole presentation is on that, okay? Is that a deal? Okay, that's a deal. So let's go to our facts you probably didn't know about the world around you. Once again, our theme is rising crime and violence. You know, we are kind of sticking with moral decay and rising crime and violence on our themes for this. Everybody know what a hacker is? Everybody knows what a hacker is, right? A golf, yeah, it's me playing golf, yes. I'm a hacker. Hacking attacks are no longer isolated to just the computer you use to send emails and browse the web. In April of 2011, the Sony PlayStation Network had to shut down due to an external intrusion that compromised an estimated 77 million user accounts. In the year 2008 alone, there was an estimated $1 trillion worth of intellectual property stolen due to hackers gaining access to confidential data stored on enterprise systems worldwide. It takes only 10 minutes to crack a lower, and I didn't know this. This is helpful. This is like Michelle's health talks right here. It only takes 10 minutes to crack a lowercase password that is 6 characters long. And add 2 extra letters and a few uppercase letters, and that number jumps to 3 years. Add just 1 more character and some numbers and symbols, and it will take 44,000 years to crack. That's valuable information, isn't it? Nearly 3/4, or 73% of all Americans have fallen victim to some type of cyber crime. That's a huge number. There is a 156-day lap between the time a computer resource is compromised and the time the compromise is detected. That leaves the attacker almost half a year to run amok. Does that make you happy? You could be hacked right now and not even know it. 90% of all businesses have suffered some sort of computer hack over the past 12 months, and 77% of those companies felt they were hit several times over the same period of time. These numbers are staggering. In 2009, the security firm Finjan discovered that a botnet run by a Ukrainian gang that consisted of over 1.9 million zombie computers, the botnet earned its owners up to $190,000 per day. $190,000 a day by robotic computers. Infected sites. Research estimates that every day more than 30,000 websites are infected with some type of malware, most of them belonging to small businesses. Over 27 million Americans have fallen victim to identity theft over the past 5 years. 9 million of them found their identity stolen in the last year alone. It's incredible. So we ask the question, why is this world in such a mess? I mean, even in the stuff we can't see, the devil has got his fingers. He's in cyberspace now like you can't believe. It's incredible what he's doing to destroy our families and our livelihood and our bank accounts. It's crazy. Now, let's talk about this guy. According to the Barna Group, the majority of Christians do not believe that Satan or the devil actually exists. Am I standing amongst believers here or non-believers? However, according to an AP poll, up to 97% of evangelical Christians believe that angels exist, okay? Now, I'm just going to do a quick overview right now. According to the Bible, Satan is a created being. Having been created by God as his most powerful angelic helper, now keep that in mind, his most powerful angelic helper. So Satan is an angel who rebelled against God. The Bible says that Satan was created by God as a cherub, the most powerful of God's angelic beings. Sometime after his creation and before the creation of mankind, Satan rebelled against God, took 1/3 of the angels, now referred to as demons, with him into rebellion. So let's go to the Bible text and let's look at this and see what happened, okay? Before we go, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my crew, okay? The people that work with me have been with me for quite some time. Some of them 15 years, some of them 20 years, some of them 30 years. And when weather gets bad, going into the winter, construction slows way down. And sometimes it slows down so slow that I have to lay people off. And sometimes it slows down to where I have to lay people off that have been with me 15 years. Okay? But one thing that happens with these guys is, and I've noticed it, and that is it doesn't matter to them whether they get laid off. What matters to them is they work together as a team. And these guys, if there's a crisis, if concrete's getting too hard too fast, if there's any kind of major crisis, these guys pull together as a team. Okay? And that's very important because, see, when they don't, when the people that are with you that you trust the most don't pull together as a team, it becomes very chaotic. It becomes very troubling. It can become a crisis. And there was a crisis in the government of God. From the very beginning, he was a murderer, John 8:44, and has never been on the side of truth because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he is only doing what is natural to him because he is a liar and the father of how many lies? All lies. There was a crisis in the government of God, and 1/3 of God's children ran out on him. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was there a place found any more in heaven. And that great dragon, who's the dragon? We don't have to guess. The Bible will tell us. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the what? Accuser of our brethren. Now remember, he's the accuser. The devil is the accuser. Remember that, because that's going to be very important tomorrow night. Okay? The accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Therefore, now this is a really interesting text. Therefore, rejoice ye heavens and them to dwell in them. Why? Because the devil is no longer there. But woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for why? Why woe to the inhabitants of the earth? Because the devil has come down unto you having great wrath, because he knows he has but a short time. So rejoice, ye heavens. Devil's not up here. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the devil has come down. Okay? If we look at Luke 10:18, Jesus himself describes this event, and he says, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. But why? That's the question we want to answer tonight. Why was he cast out? Why were 1/3 of his angels cast out with him? What went on that was so terrible that God had to, if you will, expel his right-hand man? What is our God's title? What is his job description, if you will? This is very, very important. What is God's job description? We don't have to guess. Isaiah will tell us. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the what? Creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither is weary. There is no searching his understanding. What is his job description? Creator. That's our God. He is the creator of the ends of the earth. He owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. This is his creation and no one else's. He is the creator. Everybody with me? Okay. Now, we're going to ask the question, how did Lucifer fall? We don't have to guess. The Bible specifically tells us. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend to heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. In other words, I will be higher than God. Are you with me? I will sit upon the mount of the congregation of the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, of course, being the angels. I will ascend above them. And here's the one that really gets him in trouble. I will be like the Most High. I will be God. The devil wanted to create. What is God's job description? Creator. The devil wanted to create. The devil wanted to run the show. I will be like the Most High. What is God? God is God. What does God do? He is the master of all events. He's not the author of all events because the devil has authored a few events. But God is the master of all events. The devil wanted to run the show. And being how God will accept worship, the devil wanted worship. If we go in the Bible to the book of Matthew, we're going to see that's one of the things the devil wanted also. Again, the devil, Matthew 4, chapter 4, verse 8. Again, the devil taketh him up to an exceeding high mountain and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world. Who is he taking up there? He's taking Jesus. Who is Jesus? Is Jesus God? Yes, he is. So he takes God up to the mountain and he shows him all the kingdoms of the world. And he says to him, all these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and what? Worship me. Here is a creature that wants God to worship him. He wants to be like the Most High. He wants to create. He wants to be like God. He wants to accept worship. He wants to run the show. Does the devil deserve worship? Can he create? Is he qualified to run the show? Folks, that's what this experiment here is on earth, to prove he's not qualified to run the show. But we'll prove that a little bit later on. So who is running the show? Okay. Does he restrict our freedom? Don't answer that. Let's look at it this way. Or does he help us to obtain freedom? Remember we asked the question in the second program, what is freedom? And the only way we can obtain freedom is to come to Christ. And we become free from all the critical spirit, from being rushed, from being anxious, from being angry, from being jealous. That's what freedom is. However, the devil has told us that God is restricting our freedom. I remember when I was young and in high school, I could hardly wait to graduate and become 21 so I could be free to go into the bar and drink. What did that do? I became bound to that alcohol for 25 years. Okay? That's not freedom. The devil's way is not freedom, yet he claims that God restricts our freedom. No, God helps us to obtain freedom. But the devil's claim now was that his freedom is restricted. Okay? Now, before we go any further, because we're going to get into some Bible text here, how many of you know what it means to be street smart? I know you do, Seth. You know why I know? Because you're here. Because when you have done what I have done, or my wife has done, and some of you ever have done, and now it's a curse to me, but back in my life of living on the streets, one needed to be street smart in order to survive. Your life depends on it. And to be street smart, what happens is you have to look at everything like an onion. You have to peel that skin off, and no matter how much it stinks, you got to keep peeling it off and look at it. It's going to make your eyes water, and it's ugly. But you've got to get to the bottom of everything, or you will die. And if you're street smart, you do that. You're suspicious about everybody, and you peel that onion back, and you make sure that that what you're doing, you can get away. And the same thing when you're dealing with the devil. You've got to keep peeling that onion back, and you have to be street smart, and you have to ask questions and be suspicious about everything he says. Because he will lie, He will deceive. Even when it appears like it's not him, that's the deception right there. So we're going to be street smart. We're going to peel back that onion. And it's going to stink a little bit. It's going to make our eyes water. But you know what? Our lives depend on it. Okay? So, let's look. Picture, if you will, a throne room. A heavenly throne room. Now we're going to go in our imaginations tonight a little bit. And we're going to walk through some stuff biblically. But we're going to use a little bit of, hopefully, sanctified imagination when we get a little farther, okay? So I want you to help me with that. So right now, picture a throne room. And we're going to go to the book of Job, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this, but we're going to go deeper. We're going to find out what the text really says, what is at the bottom deep on what the devil is saying, okay? And I think you'll agree with me that he says a whole lot more than just what's on the surface, okay? Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered and said, "From going to and fro on the earth and walking up and down in it." Okay, first, where is to and fro? Back and forth and up and down. North and south and east and west. What is he saying? I go everywhere I want on the earth. That earth is mine. The earth is mine. I'm coming here representing. I go to and fro and up and down. Everybody listens to me there. The reason we know he says that is notice what God says. And the Lord said to Satan, well, if you go everywhere and everybody listens to you there, have you considered my servant Job? That there's none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. Now, another version puts it this way. Did you notice my servant Job? There is no one on earth as faithful and good as he is. He worships me and is careful not to do anything evil. He worships me, not you, Satan. And he is careful not to follow you. In fact, he hates you. He doesn't do anything evil. Whoa. Touché. Right? Here's the devil sitting in this meeting saying the earth is his. God says, well, maybe so, but have you considered this one servant of mine? He doesn't follow you. Smoke starts trickling out of Satan's ears. What's he going to do? How is he going to come back with this? What is the devil's name? The accuser. Remember? The accuser. Then Satan answered the Lord and says, does Job fear God for no reason? Now that fear, remember, each version, we put the other version up here. Would Job worship you if he got nothing out of it? That fear just simply means reverence for God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The reverence of God is where you begin to get wisdom. Okay? So, would Job worship you if he got nothing out of it? What is he saying here? Would he worship you for nothing? Does he fear you for no reason? The devil's about ready to pounce. Have you not put a hedge around him? And in his house? And all that he has on every side? Is he accusing God here of something? Of playing favorites? You see that? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. What he's saying is, you have to bribe Job in order for him to love you. You've put a hedge about him. Would he worship you for nothing? In other words, what he's saying, let's peel the onion back. What he's saying is, your government is no good because nobody serves you out of love. You have to bribe them. You ever have to bribe your children? Don't you wish you didn't have to? That they just plain loved you? The devil is accusing God, number one, that his method is wrong. Number two, being how his method is wrong, He has to bribe his children to love him. Everybody with me? Do you see when you peel this onion back, it begins to make your eyes water? Now comes the spear. Diablos means a spear through the circle. My theologian friend Herb Douglas has told me. Thrusts through. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. In other words, he doesn't love you. You take the goodies away, and he will hate you. He only loves you for the goodies. Is that making sense to everyone? Okay? And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hand, only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Was it God's will that Job get hurt? Or did God get backed into a corner, quote unquote? And then you say to me, okay, wait a minute. How can God get backed into a corner? He's God. Well, let me answer that this way. What if my beautiful wife, Susan, whom I know she would never do this, told all of you that I was an adulterer? You've got a problem because you don't know who to believe, because the two are one flesh. She is my, I don't want to say right-hand man, but she is the closest to me in the universe other than God. God's closest friend has just told the rest of the universe that God's a manipulator and a briber. You see, it's not just that somebody said it. It's that God's next in command said it. Susan is the next in command. If she says anything about me, it has value. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So I just can't simply say, she's lying. What's that going to do? She's going to say, he's lying. So we need something to fix this. Something other than he said, she said, to fix it. It's the only way. They were too close. They knew each other too well that when the devil said something about God, it had value to it. The devil has just attacked God's character in front of the entire heavenly council. This is not the first time he has done this in regards to planet Earth. Okay? Now, Isaiah says something really interesting, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to reason. He says, come now, let us reason together. Okay? And this is where I want to use a little bit of sanctified imagination, but not so much as to change the meaning of everything, but just to put something in a whole nother perspective. I want to shine a light from a different angle on some text that you've seen a million times. Okay? In Ezekiel, God says, I will show my greatness. See, our God is a God of demonstration. He can't say he said, because the devil is going to say he said, and he said. He can't do that. So he demonstrates. So he says, I will show my greatness and my holiness and make myself known in the eyes of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. How will they know? He will show. Okay? That's how you know. God will show. Okay? To one who orders his way rightly, Psalms 50:23, God says, I will show the salvation of the Lord. Okay? Joel 2, verse 30, I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth. Our God is a God of demonstration. He has to be, because he's been accused of being a liar. Now let's go a little bit farther now. God showed us and the universe a lot about himself at creation. Okay? And with this background of Satan being kicked out of heaven and what he's accused God of, let's look at creation with this background, okay? And he's answered those accusations. He answered a lot of them at creation, believe it or not, if we look deep enough, okay? Now, what was it? Devil wanted worship, right? He wanted to create, and he wanted to run the show. And he also claimed that his freedom was restricted. How do we know that? Let's look. Okay, let's look. Does everybody know what it means to be ordained? Set aside for a certain purpose, okay? When God created the sun and the moon, he ordained them for that purpose. Once again, I'll use my friend Herb Douglas. He is an ordained elder. He has been ordained by God for the function of an elder, as is Jerry Rowan. That's what they've been ordained. Now, as hard as I want to and try, if I was to try, I cannot have a child. I was not ordained to do that. Women were, right? God has ordained certain people for certain purposes and certain things for certain purposes. And he sets them apart for that use. The devil was not set apart for the use to create. He was set apart to run and manage the angels. That was his job. And that was it. It was not to be God. It was not to get worship. It was not to create. It was not to run the show. He was not ordained for that. Are you with me? Everybody with me? That's how God operates. The rain was ordained to water. That's what it does. Okay? It doesn't heat things up. Fire does that. God ordains everything to do things in a certain purpose. Now, with that in mind, and the devil wanting to create and God saying no, the devil wanting worship and God saying no, the devil claiming that his freedom was restricted because God said no, 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 right? So his freedom is restricted. So let's look at what happens at creation then. God is a God of demonstration, is he not? What was the devil's claim? He wanted to create. God said, you were not ordained to create. However, come over to this planet Earth, and I will create a creature, and I will ordain that creature to procreate. I will ordain that creature to be as close to God without being a God. In other words, I will allow this creature will be ordained to be able to create. And that's you and I. So does that answer that accusation that God will not share his creative abilities? Yes. God demonstrates that he will share his creative abilities with us. We're the demonstration. You find this fascinating. Okay, the other thing was that God was restrictive. That he wouldn't, that he restricts freedom. So God says, I'll tell you what, then these creatures that create, I'm going to allow them to raise their little ones to the dictates of their own conscience. To be totally free to do that. Does he answer that accusation that God restricts freedom? And he says, to top it all off, you think your freedom is restricted. I will give you access to them at the tree. Ooh, our God is a God of demonstration. Do you see how he answered those accusations at creation? Because he demonstrates. Now, picture a courtroom. Now, a heavenly courtroom. Okay? We're going to go to court. Anybody ever been to court? You know what? Nobody was bashful to raise their hand. Good. Good. So you all know the program on what happens in court. What are the devil's accusations an attack on? They're actually an attack on God's character. When someone says that you are doing this or you're a liar or whatever, it's an attack on your character. To understand God's character, we must weigh evidence. Are you with me? Let's weigh some evidence. You want to weigh some evidence? Let's weigh some evidence. God has invited us to weigh the evidence where? In the Bible. Okay? Let's talk about character evidence. Character evidence is a term used in the law of evidence to describe any testimony or document submitted for the purpose of proving that a person acted in a particular way on a particular occasion based on the character or disposition of that person. Character evidence. Let's talk about an opening statement. Remember, we're going to go to court, so we need to know what these things are. Opening statement is a valuable contributor to the persuasion process at trial. Through opening statements, each side lets the jury know what evidence they will present and what this evidence is supposed to prove. Okay? Character evidence, opening statement. What evidence we're going to use, what it's supposed to prove. Let's look at God's opening statement. Okay? Remember, he's answering those accusations. Exodus 20, verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made, what's his job? Creator, right? And he did it, didn't he? His job description is creator, and he did it, and he showed. So, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is. Another part of God's opening statement, then the Lord God formed the man of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living creature. So he created the earth, then he created man. And he breathed into his nostrils what? That breath of life that we talked about. And God saw everything that he had made, and it was what? Very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. God's opening statement, in conclusion, I am the creator, I am the source of life, and everything is very good. Okay? Created the heavens and the earth. He breathed in Adam the breath of life. I'm the creator, I'm the source of life, and everything is very good. Did he demonstrate this? Yes, he did. In the book of Job, it says the angels, the sons of God and the angels shouted for joy when God created this planet. It must have been a glorious thing. Now, to understand how God is the source of life, I want to share with you a little story about this little guy, my cat Mister again. We're going to use him 3 times during this seminar because it's great object lessons. Plus, I love him to death, so I like seeing him. Okay? This is a feeding tube right here. Okay? Because he got really sick and his nose was plugged and he couldn't smell for weeks at a time. And they said if a big animal like that, if they can't smell, they won't eat. If they don't eat, their liver will fail very soon. So we were scared. So they just, it's almost an outpatient deal. They stuff a feeding tube, goes right into the whatever. And then, then you got this gizmo here. And so we had to feed him 4 times. You see he's all stuffed up. He don't feel good. And so this is his source of life. Okay, and when he runs, when we had to feed him 4 times a day, Susan did. She wants to claim that she's the source of life, is what it is. So anyway, I noticed that whenever he ran, he was running away. When we tried to do this and he would run away, I would say, this is so foolish because he's running from the source of life. But it was so obvious that was his source of life. It had his medication in it, it had the nutrients, and if he did not take it, he would die. It was so obvious to me. And I thought, that must be how obvious we are to the holy beings, and we run from God. But he's our source of life, and we don't treat him that way. We run from him, and it's so obvious, probably the rest of the universe, why do these people continue to run? It's crazy. And I'm looking at Mister. Why does he run from this? It's a source of life. God proved that he was the source of life in the Garden of Eden when he breathed into the man's nostrils the breath of life. He demonstrated that. Now, Satan, of course, has an opening statement too. God is a liar. Now, why would I say that? Why would I say that's his opening statement? Remember, we've got to peel back the onion, okay? We've got to peel back the onion. Now, counsel will have a witness take the stand and his oath is taken in the courtroom. And we're going to peel back the onion on exactly what the devil really means by what he says in the courtroom, okay? Counsel will then begin direct examination. How does counsel introduce a witness? In a courtroom, counsel will send someone to get his next witness. Now get this. This is very important. Who is probably waiting outside the courtroom so as not to have been influenced by any prior testimony unless he or she is the first witness. So the witnesses are outside the courtroom not to be influenced by anything that's gone on prior. Okay? Had something gone on prior to the creation of this earth? Were some angels and the devil cast out of heaven? Were Adam and Eve privy to this? They were not witnesses to that. See? So they are out of the courtroom. So now, Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he calls his first witness, someone who has not been influenced by any prior testimony. Are you with me? Someone who has not seen the war in heaven. This is a complete and true picture of what would happen in a courtroom. In Genesis 3:1 we find, and he said unto the woman, this is the serpent, Yea, hath God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Once again, who are the questions about? God. Has not God said? Whose character's on trial? God's. Genesis 3:2, and the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Okay? And the serpent said, ye shall not surely die. Let's peel back the onion. What is he saying? God is a liar. Are you with me? You see how you can determine that? God is a liar. See, he's not talking about living or dying. He's talking about the character of God. What God says is a lie. For God knows that in the day you eat, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And God wants to object here, but he can't. You know why? Because they will know good and evil. But see, God never intended a human being to know good and evil. But that's the part the devil left out. At this point, the devil turns to the court and says to the woman, whom do you believe? And he holds the fruit. Are you in the courtroom with me, or am I there by myself? Okay. Let's find out who she trusts. And I could just see him walking by the jury. Whom does she believe? Let's find out who she trusts. Me or the liar? And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to desire to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. Wow. She believes me, the devil says. The devil makes the claim that he is telling the truth based on this testimony of this witness. And the eyes of them both were opened, just like the devil said. But something happened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Something happened. Something happened when they partook of that fruit. And now they knew that they were naked. Now they knew they did something wrong. Now there was shame and guilt, and they felt it. And from that day forward, mankind plunged into sin, and everything changed, and the entire universe saw it happen. They saw the change, and they realized that God was telling the truth. But God had to prove it in court. Let's go farther. As the devil rests his case, God says, hold on, not so fast, not so fast. God calls his first witness. But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. God calls his witness. His witness is hiding. He has a hostile witness. He has a hostile witness. The witness no longer loves God like he did 20 minutes before. Something happened. Something changed. When they disobeyed, their brain changed and they ran from God. And God told them that was going to happen. So God has a hostile witness. Adam takes the stand, and God says, who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree which I commanded you not to eat? And you see Adam sitting on the stand, a little quivered up. And what's he going to say? The woman that you gave me. Who's he blaming? He's blaming God also. God's own witness is hostile and blaming God. Because see, now Adam has taken on the characteristics of the devil. In other words, the characteristic of the devil is self-preservation. And now Adam is also blaming God. The woman you gave to me, she gave me of the fruit of the tree and I ate. God then introduces into evidence Exhibit A, the documented proof that God is innocent and that he did warn the man. Imagine where God is going to go. He's going to go to Genesis 2:16, Exhibit A. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, you may eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for in the day that you eat of it ye shall surely die. That was a warning, not a threat. That was a warning. God calls the woman. Then the Lord God said to the woman, what is this that you have done? The woman said, the serpent, and we can assume that she's saying that you allowed into the garden, deceived me and I ate. God then introduces into evidence Exhibit B, the woman's own sworn testimony that she also was warned, proving God's innocence. Genesis 3:2, and the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, ye shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. The woman's own sworn testimony that she was warned. Is God innocent? Is he a liar? No. Based on the testimony of two hostile witnesses, God is exonerated. God then looks at the courtroom and says, if it please the court, based upon this evidence, I would like the serpent to please rise. And then the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock, above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. If it please the court also, based on this new evidence, I would like to place a restraining order on the serpent. You know what that restraining order is? God said, I will put enmity, hatred, between you and the woman, that's Eve, and between your offspring and her offspring. God has put a hatred for evil in the heart of each one of us. If we follow God, our love for him strengthens, and our hatred for evil strengthens. That enmity he's placed in everyone's heart, we can strengthen that. If we follow God and once again, who? Walk with Jesus. That's how that hatred even gets stronger for the evil. God confessed Job. Why? Job walked with God. God knew Job hated evil. He could confess to the entire universe, that one follows me. I don't have to bribe him. And also, I personally would like to give the man and the woman another chance. The devil never saw that one coming. He never saw that one coming. The Son of God, 1 John 3:8, the Son of God appeared for this very reason, to destroy what the devil had done. Wow. Wow. 1 Peter says this, for you know what was paid to set you free. It was the costly sacrifice of Christ, who was like a lamb without defect or flaw. He had been chosen by God before the creation of the world. God knew this was coming. God knew this whole horrible thing was coming, and he was prepared for it. It was not a knee-jerk for God. He has made a way out for you and I over this lying, conniving, manipulating being. That being is our problem, not God. And a lot of us treat God as the problem. God restricts our freedom. God won't let me do this. God won't let me do that. God knows what's best for each one of us. And the more we follow him, the more that love for him will strengthen, and the more we will be like Job and hate and detest evil. Once again, as I mentioned earlier, the saddest part about my work is to have to look at these guys in the wintertime and lay them off, knowing that they have house payments and children and any number of things, kids that are sick, and I have to look them in the eye and say, I don't know when we're going to go back to work. And the worst part is I have to tell them, don't call me, I'll call you. Because if they call me, I got to tell them no. And they call again, I got to tell them no again. It's very hard. So please, don't call me, I'll call you. Our question for tonight is, why is this world in such a mess? Because God waits. See, I lay those people off. But there are people coming to God right now that are laying themselves off. That's got to be 10 times harder on God. The children that he loves so much, are going to him right now and say, lay me off, God. I don't want anything to do with you. And so he waits. He waits for someone who will love him. Someone who will believe the demonstration that we just put up on the screen. And he waits. And the world gets messier and messier and messier as God waits. And how he demonstrates that as he waits and we reject him and we follow the devil, the world gets messier and messier. And he begins to show, by demonstration, what a planet looks like under the devil's control. This is not what God wanted. But the only way to get off this planet alive and to eliminate this mess is to follow God all the way. And you're going to see stuff going on around you that is horrible. And you're going to say, why is God allowing this? We've just seen the pickle that the devil has put God in because God has giving all of us beings freedom to choose. And the devil is constantly accusing God. And God is allowing terrible things to happen because we've rejected him, and he has nothing. He's a gentleman. He doesn't go where he's not welcome. Are you with me? Now, tomorrow night, we're going to follow this accuser. And we're going to see what happens when he accuses you and me. Because he's going to do it. That's his nature. That's what he does. He's the accuser of the brethren. See, God won his case in court for good at the cross. The only thing left now is to accuse you and me. So God waits. He waits to see what we're going to do. In the meantime, the world gets worse and worse and worse. And God is just saying, please, children, come to me and we can get this whole thing over. But I could imagine the angels saying, God, let's stop it. It's horrible enough. No, let's wait a little longer. I've got children down there, and some of them will turn to me. Let's wait a little longer. Let's wait a little longer.